All right, hey everybody, welcome back to another song breakdown. So this video is where I take you into the recording session of music that I have released that is now out in the world, and I show you how it was done, like a behind the scenes. So last time we looked at Bag of Pieces, and today we're gonna look at a tune that I put out recently called Let Me Tell You Right Now. The best way to interact with this video, I would say, is to go check out the song if you have not heard it already. So I will have a link in the description. You can go give the song a listen, and then you can come back to this video and see how it was made. I wanted to do this one next because this one is very different from Bag of Pieces. A little bit of a different vibe, and you will see. And especially if you've heard the song, you already know. This is one of those tunes that I didn't really set out to write this. It just kind of happened. So I was working on something else at the time, and it just wasn't happening, right? So I ended up sitting down at the keyboard. At the time, I was using a Juno DS88. So just about everything in this session is from that keyboard. For the most part, there's some stuff that is not a keyboard. But I was working on this other tune, and I wasn't feeling it, so I sat down at the keyboard, and I stumbled upon this keyboard patch that sounded like this. And I really liked it. I loved how rhythmic it was. And it was a little bit different from sounds that I would normally use. And I was like, I kind of like this. So I was messing with that, and I had this like little thing happening in my head, this little earworm that went, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. And I was like, why does that work? Like, legitimately, why does that work? Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Just like literally over and over again in my head. So I was like, well, let me try it. And we got this. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. So at this point when I was writing this, I was like, what in the world is this thing? So I literally was like, you know what? We're going to roll with it, and we're just going to, whatever unfolds, right? So the Juno DS88 had like a vocal processor in it. So you could like plug in a microphone, and it had various effects that you could apply to your voice. So when I was working on this, I'm like, well, what if I like had a choir of people singing, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. And I was like, well, let me try it. So what I decided to do is I decided to go into the keyboard, right, and record a bunch of different versions of my voice singing, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Which turned into this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for y'all.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Let me tell you right now, oh.
Let me
go.
tell you right now.
Hey.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, oh.
And it freaking worked. That was what was so crazy. I want to play just the beginning of this song before we move on to that bit. So let me go ahead and just play the beginning of the vocal here, so you can kind of hear how the choir is introduced. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Some ad-libs here. Now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me me tell you right now.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
So that's how we get into it. The way that I made this bit right here, so there were different vocal effects on this keyboard. Like, you know, of course, the classic, like, you can make your voice sound super high, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, but you could also make your voice sound super low. And then you could do, like, an in-between. So you could, like, do these incremental adjustments to make your voice sound, like, lower and lower by step, but it's still the same pitch. It was really cool. I had some voices in here that were high up and some that were low, but I didn't want it to just be the two extremes. I'm like, how do I make this work? So I needed to have some in between. So I'm just going to play some of these one by one so you can hear how this unfolded. So I'm literally just going to go top down. And the effect is interesting because when you solo these, it doesn't always sound good. So it's kind of fun. So here we go.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
And keep
Let me
going.
tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
Like very electronic.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now.
I love that effect. It's super cool. So it's kind of fun. So a lot of these are kind of baked in. So the goal was to get these, stack the vocals on top of each other, but also make it to where they blend. I just recorded a bunch of these until it worked. I just tried a bunch of things. I think I literally started up here, recorded one, recorded another, made some adjustments on the keyboard to the vocal, did another, did some harmonies. So it was a lot of fun to make because I literally was like in my apartment at the time, just having fun. Literally, this song was just fun to make. I had a blast making this thing. So this song was basically born from fun, as every song is, but this one in particular, I was having a blast. I was just trying a bunch of stuff, and we got this, and somehow I think it's super catchy. You can be the judge of that, but I was like, this sucker was stuck in my head for days. It still does get stuck in my head sometimes. So I'm going to play this one more time so you can kind of hear. I'm going to isolate this with the synth and lead vocal here.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now.
Gosh, I could just keep listening to it. I enjoy this tune a lot. As well with these, we got some of these guys down here. Some bow wows, as I like to call them. So I'm just going to play the whole track here. I'll mute everything and play it. So here we go.
Let me tell you right now.
Looking at these guys right here.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
And then you're left
Let
ear
me
right
tell you
there.
right now. Let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
Yeah, so these were fun. I'm like, I need another like rhythmic thing happening here. So then I did these.
Bow, bow, bow. 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 Bow, bow, bow.
So this was also using the keyboard. The keyboard also had like an auto-tune feature, which was fun. So that's what you're hearing here. Like these, I was like, I love the sound of like these really electronic like background vocals. Again, I was just listening to the track and I was like, bow, bow, bow. Just like that. Bow, 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 bow. I was like, let's add it. Shaker right here. Added the shaker. That's our first moment of some sort of rhythm before these bow, bows.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now,
Thought it was a
let
cool
me
little
tell you
touch.
right now, let me tell you right now,
Just starting out with the shaker before we get to
let me
the
tell you right
percussion.
now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
Okay, gosh, I just keep letting it play. It's fun. You know, like you like a song that you've written when you actually listen to it, which is like that's how it should be. You know, like you write the music you want to hear yourself, so like you listen to it. I like listening to this one. I'm not ashamed to say that. So alongside, we have the main synth here, lead vocal, and we have the choir of pitched vocals here. I had this guy, which was a Vibes EP, like an electric piano patch on the keyboard. So this is that. Plays the chords, but they're very long. And this is with a synth. Kind of sit behind it. Just like another layer of the harmonies there with the synthesizer. Just kind of adds to the overall sound of the opening chords here. I'll talk about the bass in a moment. So I had the synthesizer, I had this electric piano here, I had this vocal thing happening, and then I'm like, you know, sounds a bit like a dance tune, so I was like, I want to have a breakdown, like an instrumental breakdown. And the instrumental break goes like this. Whoops. So yeah, you get the idea. So the first thing you'll probably notice in this instrumental break are these guys. These squeals. So I'm gonna play these on their own. This is all again from the keyboard. So here we go. They're like these like saxophone reed squeals, which I was like, I like how that sounds. What if we had like some wacky like sound that happened in this instrumental section? And so I stacked 3 of these on top of each other. I actually think this might be, is it the same thing each time? I think this is, yes, okay. This is actually the same recording. Yeah, you can kind of see it. Yep, you can see it. This is the same recording, just 3 different times, and I just bumped each one back a little bit, so. And I like the sound of that, how it was like, you can hear parts of it that are repeating. Gives it a little bit of structure, right? And I like this idea that individual parts of this would happen on like different sides. So like I panned it left, a little bit to the right, and quite a bit to the right. So that was just one of those things. You're like, let me do a reed squeal, and then I'm going to duplicate it 3 times and adjust it to where it works. So I like weird sounds and wacky sounds. This idea actually came from, it was actually a Radiohead remix I think it was a quartet remix of a Radiohead tune. I think it was Scatterbrain. Highly recommend that. Everyone should go check that out. It's really cool. And there's like a moment in that where it sounds like a saxophone. It's just a saxophone squealing during this part of the track. And it worked so well. And I loved it. So when I got to this part of the song, I was like, what if I did something like that? So I want to talk a moment about, well, first, we introduce another shaker here. So you can hear that. You can hear that right here. Just a way of elevating the shaker for the instrumental section. Then we brought in the percussion. The percussion's fun. The percussion's really fun. So these percussion samples are also from the keyboard, which was fun. So it had like these drum tracks on it, which I thought were really interesting. I loved how they were obviously like from a keyboard, I thought at least. So I'm going to isolate these so you can hear what each one is. Drum one. Okay, so I'm just going to play you literally what this is. It's a swing beat. Which you might be going like, what? I know, exactly. So we have a swing beat here, and then I'll play you the second one right here. This is drum 2. Also a swing beat, just a bit more, not as busy version of the first one. And I'm going to play you this last one. So this is drum 3. Not a swing beat. Your classic like 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the nature of just trying things and stacking things on top of each other. I just recorded these different, just various rhythms from the keyboard, and I just stacked them on top of each other. So I'm just going to play all of these together without any of the effects. I just thought that was really interesting. I was like, okay, it's starting to sound interesting, right? So I had to take it a step further because it just wasn't quite there yet. So one thing I like to do with my drums, I like to use this this delay right here. So on the first drum, I had this thing called a filter delay. Here's what the filter delay does to this track. Here we go. So we have 3 things right here. So we have like a left delay, left and right delay, and a right delay here on this plugin right here. I love it because it just adds another layer on top of the drum beat. And I've done this before with stuff, and I love the result of it. I love this. I love like the shaka-taka-taka that happens like in this part right here. Like these larger transients right here. The swing of the rhythm starts to fade a little bit, right? But you're getting this result from the filter delay because it's the swing beat, right? So then I have drum 2. I use a stereo flex here. It's just like a different preset on the same delay. And here we go. So this just gives the sound of the drums a different feel. So I'm going to unmute this guy. Kind of crushes the sound a little bit. Gives it a bit more grain. I love sounds in music that you can, like, if the sound was a tangible thing, you know what it would feel like, right? That's one way that I go about coming up with ideas for sounds and stuff. Is like, I love, like this is a very grainy sort of sound. It's like you can almost feel it, right? And then we had this guy, drum 3 down here. Same idea, same preset as drum 2. Same thing, kind of dirties up the sound a little bit. So I'm gonna play drum 2 and drum 3 together now. And of course it's like, what in the world is going on? But when you add drum 1 with the filter delay, you get this. Here's the thing about the drums. When you solo them, there's still like this like, what's the goal here, right? Well, then when you add them in context with the song, it works really well. It works so well. I also was like, what in the world? Why does that work? So this song, there was a lot of like, what if I tried this? What if I tried this? Which I think I mentioned this in the last video. That idea is how I posture myself when I am working on music, is I'm like, what would happen if I tried this or this or this? And then I just try a bunch of different things until I get something like this, like, right? So like if I take the filter delay off of drum 1 and I played it with the song, here's what we get. It still works. And then I'm going to add the filter delay back. There's like these moments inside of the percussion that's like popping out at the track, which is what was really fun to discover. There was a lot in the drum beat that was just kind of popping out, appearing, a lot from the filter delay. It worked, and that's how I kind of got to that. I'm going to talk about this electric bass track in a second. So the next thing I did was like, okay, so now I need some low end, and I want to introduce it in the instrumental bit. So I came up first with this little bass lick here. So this is using a bass patch on the keyboard, and here's what this sounded like. Just like a little fun little bass lick there. So those are two basses, and I had this sidechain synth happening here that you'll hear. Like your classic like EDM style sidechain synth here. So I was like, that's fun. And then we move to the second part of the instrumental here, and we have another sidechain synth that sounds like this. Just an octave higher. Then we had this guy down here. I call this the offbeat bass. So this was a bass patch that I just played really high up on the keyboard, and I played it how I would like play a piano. So yeah, so that was the bass. So I got to this point in the song, and I'm like, okay, bass sounds good in this part, but I still feel like it was missing a little something, so I'm gonna mute this electric bass here, and I'm gonna play the whole track for you right here. So it's still a little empty, right? So what I did, I called up my good friend Hannah Bosenholt, and I said, hey, would you be down to play electric bass on this track? She's a fantastic bass player. She has a project called Feels Like Honey that you all should go check out. We have a song called All the Flowers. Highly recommend it. So I'm like, hey, you mind playing some bass on this? And she sent me this. I was like, absolutely loved it. It's like dirty. It like works so well. So I'm going to play that with all the basses. It sounds like this. Hannah really brought the low end of this thing together. She did a killer job on this. Just didn't work without it. And specifically, I really wanted Hannah's playing on this track, as she has played on a few songs of mine at this point. Yeah, everyone should go check her out. She's great. So that's kind of the bulk of the instrumental bit. I'm going to play everything, and I'm going to lead us out. I'm going to play us out of the instrumental bit here. So I'm going to start right here. So I needed something to get us out of the instrumental bit, and I'm like, I want to do something with the vocals here. I want to do some sort of effect or something that's going to lead out of the instrumental bit as we approach the landing into the end of the piece. So here's what I did. I grouped these guys together, and I put a couple plugins here on the group. And I'm just going to play this, and you'll be able to see down here what's happening. So we got a couple things happening here. I'm going to talk about the frequency shifter here first. This is getting a little bit into the nitty gritty, but it's fun. Frequency shifter, I love working with these because it's a great way of just doing some like interesting pitch bending effects. So if you'll notice on here, so this little red dot is automation for those who aren't familiar. So you will see this guy move as this is playing out. So what I did was I just took the fine tune here and I just bumped it up over time. That is why the pitch goes up, is this guy right here. So let's watch this down here. It's a fun way to just like pitch up the vocals a little bit, but like kind of in a dirty way. So I'm just gonna mute these guys.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell
Kind of also has like a very electronic-y type of feel to it. So there was that, and then I had this stereo vibrato here, which just gave it a little more texture to it. So I'm gonna play this.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell
It like duplicates the vocal, like gives it a little bit of a shake. The dry wet down here, this basically gives you how much of the output from this plugin are you going to be hearing. Just for fun, I'm going to turn this all the way up so you can hear the full effect of it.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell
This also has some, you can change the pitch as well. So here's like a course. So like I'm just going to play. I wish it would stop doing that. Just do this right here. I'm going to turn this down.
Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now.
So if it was normal,
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me
And then I'm going to turn it up to where it was. I believe it was at 5 steps.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me.
So when I have the dry wet over here at 22%, you were hearing the actual pitch plus the pitch from this. So it sounds like, so technically we're getting more vocals. We're like doubling the choir vocals here. So here we go.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell.
So that's that effect plus the frequency shifter.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell.
Lots of pitch bending there. The last thing we had to achieve this was the Redux. I love this plugin to death. I don't know like technically what this thing does, like the really nerdy details, but all I know is it's awesome. And that's really all you need to know, I think, when you're working with stuff like this. Is like, if it sounds cool, awesome. You don't need to know why it's doing or how it does what it does. It sounds great. Here is, I'm going to take all this off. So these two are muted, so you'll only hear the Redux sound. Here we go.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell.
Add some static, right? One more time.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell.
That is the Redux, right? I love this thing. I've used this thing so many times. You're going to see this guy return a ton. All of that together gives us this.
Let me tell you right now, 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 let me tell.
The way I got here, I just tried a bunch of stuff until I got to this point right here. Like, I'm like, okay. Again, back to like, what if I did this or what if I do that? I just experiment with plugins until I find something. And I've messed around with this kind of stuff enough to where like, I'm like, okay, I want this type of result. And these are usually the plugins that I use to achieve things like that. So I usually go to the plugins that I know well, and I just mess with a lot of the settings to see what happens until I get something like this. And usually how I have to do it is like, I'll do effects and things, and then I have to let it sit for a day, and then I come back to it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that works great. Sometimes you just got to give your ears a break. So one thing I forgot to mention was right before the instrumental, there's a moment where the whole track, the pitch goes down. So I'll show you right here. One more time. I want to show you how I did that. So I had a moment right before this instrumental break where I was like, I need something that leads into this. At first it just happened, and then I'm like, well, like I need something else. So I decided I had something happen in the bass. I think I had a bass go boom at a slide, and I think, oh, I did it. Well, of course I did that, because here on the master track, I use the frequency shifter right here to literally pitch down the track globally. So you will see this right here. Red dot, of course, is automation, and you will see that move. And here we go. I loved that effect. I thought it was so fun. So that's all that was. Just this this effect right here. Fine tune, pitch it down, boom. You got that. Now let's talk about how we get out of this section. So earlier, we talked a little bit about this electric piano. I wanted to do like this outro bit with this Vibes EP. And it sounds like this. So I'm just going to solo this and play it for y'all. Oh, I love that. I love the freaking electric keyboard patches on that keyboard. I'm just going to play like this first one here. This is just me rolling the chords. And I'm going to add the second one. I think I'm doing the same thing but lower. Yeah. Yeah, and then we have the third one here. also rolling the chords, but just doing different voicings. You have this next guy. Some more stacking higher up. And then we have this last guy, which I think was just a few notes here. Let's solo this guy. What is this? Oh, okay. So this was like really low. A little bit of a bass there. I just thought that was a fun way to exit this instrumental bit. So the instrumental bit ends. We have this fun little vibes EP happening, and then plus the drums. So I'm gonna play all of this together. And then we end it as we started it. I talked a little bit in the last video. I love ending a tune the way it started, or doing some sort of callback from the beginning of a piece. It just works really well. I do that quite often, and it's just a fun way of just like, I think I said in the last video, it's just a great way of creating a nice smooth landing into the ending of the song. Also just a great way of just, you know, wrapping up the piece, putting a nice little bow on top. So that is that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, in the instrumental bit, I had this guy up here, this guitar arpeggio thing. I'm going to solo this. This is just me trying some stuff when I was recording this. So that was one of the more earlier things that I recorded, and I ended up keeping it in. Let's see here. It doesn't do too much, but all I know is that it is in the track, and whatever it is and however it affects it, it does something to it, right? That's just another layer that you can't quite hear, but it does impact the overall sound. That's one thing that's fun about production as well, is you can add so many details. When you listen to it, you're not necessarily going to pick it out, but they're in there, and it does affect the overall outcome of whatever you're creating. That happens all the time in music. I'm sure if you were to go into a lot of music, like the recording sessions of a lot of things, producers will do stuff like that all the time. There's all kinds of details and stuff to build and fill out a song. This is an example of that, I'd say. I kept it in there. It might not do a ton for it, but I'm like, it's there, and it's not super quiet, so I was like, I'll just keep it. That is, let me tell you right now, that is the track. This was a really fun one to make. Again, this song was born out of just having fun. And I had a very simple idea. Let me tell you right now, let me tell you right now. Oh. Again, one of those songs that I was never like, I'm going to write a song that's it. It just kind of happened, and we eventually got here. And I think the result's really fun. So a lot of fun stuff in this track. I learned a lot from creating this. Again, I love approaching everything I make as practice and just trying different things. And since making this song, I have gotten better at producing and such, just based on stuff that I've tried in this track and things, and every song builds on the next, right? So I hope you enjoyed Let Me Tell You Right Now. Again, you can go check out the song, link in the description if you want to hear it in full. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching if you got this far, and I will see you in the next one. See you later.